Well, I'm going to delay the ball joint modifications a little bit longer. One of the guys who actually ordered the ball joint mod in Australia, the ball joint mod just really didn't seem to quite fit what he needed. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and rebuild a set of 320 Kingpins and spindles and that stuff, and modify them for a disc brake kit and send them all that stuff. So the control arms are coming off, the upper and lower. I'll go over details. Now, I've done a lot of how-to videos already on rebuilding the Kingpins and that stuff. So this is going to be fairly quick and down and dirty trying to get them done. But I've got a better camera and better editing software, so I think I'm going to take a crack at improving the last video, and then maybe put it up and pull some of the other ones off. We'll see. So the other ones, they go into a lot more detail. Like on these, I'm just going to have them honed. I'm going to have the bushings honed. I'm not going to hand ream them like I did the other ones. That was just, they came out perfect when they were honed, and it was well worth the money. So that's what I'm going to be playing with out here for a while. Well, let's see what we can get done here. Okay, I got both of them sitting up here. Now, the truck is a front steer. Okay, so steering arm, this is the driver's side. Okay, so I want to take some reference pictures. This is the front arm, the sway bars on the front, stuff like that. So I just want to be able to know that, you know, the grease fitting down here is on the front. So, and on this one, same thing, grease fittings on the front. We'll see how easy some of this stuff comes apart. Hopefully it won't fight me too bad. But now this one here, this is upper fulcrum pin bolt, and it's not it's nothing too fancy. So I've actually had to go in and run a saw down in there, a hacksaw, air body saw, whatever, and cut that bolt off. But looks like I'm getting lucky today. Hopefully it'll, and getting the nut off's not usually the issue. The issue is usually getting the bolt out, because what happens is the sleeve inside the rubber bushings is steel, and it rusts to the bolt, and so then you can't, yeah, since I don't want to, well, if it's not going to, if it's not going to come out, the bolt's got to get replaced, so it really doesn't matter how hard you wail on it at that point. So. And it's just pushing the arm apart here, and I don't really want to damage the cross shaft, so I'm going to cut it. That's what's going to happen. Okay, so I've done the spreading there. What that's done is that's giving me a nice big gap there to get the saw in. So I know exactly which saw I want to use on this. Yes, it did. Now, can I get it back out? Because I put a lot of pressure on that. So, something tells me this is going to get edited out. It's not about never screwing up, it's about figuring out how to fix your screw up. So, since the screwdriver's in my way, then I don't have to flip it over here. Oh, there we go. Duh. Okay, so I should be able to just drive this out. I've got it driven in there so hard, though, that I got to fight with all the rubber and that stuff, so... Oh. There we go. Okay. So let's just put that on the floor for now. Bottom one's not cutting those. Not cutting those. So let's see if I can get this in a position where I can cut on it without, because what you want to watch is, this is just a Harbor Freight Sawzall, not Sawzall, portable bandsaw. You want to make sure you don't go twisting the blade and stuff like that, so I want to try to find a spot where you can keep this plate up against there so that way it doesn't sit there and jerk back and forth and all that kind of stuff. So, looks like everything ought to move far enough to let me do what I need to do. So, there we go. I think I'll edit out the first one because that first one sucked. Alright. Onto the floor with it too. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I'll have to play with those a little bit. I might have to finish hammering them out. With where I cut the rubber off and that stuff, the rubber's so dead that it just squeezed and pushed right through. So nice. All right, on to the hard part. These taking these off, that can be a royal friggin' nightmare. And this cotter bolt down here, that is by far the biggest nightmare. So I'm not doing any more cutting. Let's pull this out of here. Oh, ouch. I gotta take the brakes and vacuum plate off of this one, take the hub back off of this one. Well, I'm kind of curious to see. Let's see if we can even get one of these busted loose. Now this is rated with a good battery for, with a fresh battery for like 250 foot-pounds. So I would rather use a shorter socket so it doesn't absorb as much of the twist and everything. But, oh man, that was too easy. Any of you guys out there who have stood on top of 6-foot pipes and that stuff jumping on these things knows what I'm talking about. Wow. Well, there's one. Let's see if our luck holds. Okay, and part of the reason these things are such a pain in the ass Okay, it's really kind of hard to tell. If you ever take these apart, you'll know. But there's just it's threaded. Okay, but it's a really shallow, soft, round. It looks like it's just been stripped off, but they do actually thread in to the lower control arm, and you can see the threads in there. Well, then it also threads onto the lower fulcrum pin. Okay, and in order to get these things back together without them binding, if you ever take it off to do this, you have to make sure that you get that pin back in this lower control arm. The spindle really doesn't matter so much, but you got to have it back in this lower control arm, pointing the right way. Okay, front and back does matter, only because everything's been worn that way. When they're brand new, you got to still mess around with them and that stuff. But that, you want to make sure you keep track of which way is front on it and which nut is in the front and the back. So this nut needs to go on this end of this fulcrum pin in this position on this lower control arm. Okay, otherwise, as you start to tighten everything down, before you get these nuts tight against the lower control arm, they will bind the fulcrum pin, and you won't be able to it'll bind so hard you won't be able to move the dog bone, to move the spindle actually up and down. And I noticed that the cotter bolt is out on this one. I wonder if I'm going to get... That takes out half the work. That's awesome that it's out. Getting the other one out might be a bit of a headache, but I'll get a drift and drive this out. That'll separate those two. And take some of the other crap off. And, well, let's see if we can push that out. Now, I don't want to damage the threads. And there's quite a bit of grease in here. Because basically the fulcrum pin is a hollow bolt. It's machined, and so you really don't want to screw up the threads on the outside. So I've got a steel drift here that fits in the cone there that where the grease is going. Now let's just well, kind of what I was afraid of. Because the cotter pin bolt was out, and of course water gets around here because there's no seals in that stuff, the fulcrum pin has rested inside the dog bone. I can sacrifice the fulcrum pins if I have to, but I'd rather not. So I'm going to get some of the rest of the weight off of here, and then I'll see about maybe putting it in the press or just setting it up in the vise where I can hold it and get a little bit better, use a bigger hammer on it basically. So when you're on the, actually working on the truck, you can take the hub off, okay? You don't have to disassemble any of this to get the backing plate off, okay? Bolts, okay? And you just get in here with a flat chisel and just tap them down out of the way. On the 325, 25, 21, they're 9/16. When you move to the 620, they're 14s. So, and the top two have bolt nuts on the backside. Okay, they're just pass-through holes in the spindle. The bottom two are threaded. On the 620, all four are threaded. So of course they're two different lengths too then. Shorter ones go in the bottom ones. Longer ones go on the top. So you can keep all this stuff together, whatever, throw it in a baggie. If you're going to reuse it, if you're going to trash it, give it to somebody else, whatever. So, and that's all there is to it. I've kept these backing plates and used them as patterns, you know, for other projects and stuff like that. But I forgot to turn the camera on to show you. Taking the sway bar thing out, what they do is they get stuck really bad in there, okay? The rubber welds itself to the metal and that stuff. So what I did was I grabbed it with vice grips and then spun it with the impact while pushing the vice grips out, kind of thing, and that was able to pop it all apart. So Got these now. These have basically the same keepers that the vacuum plate did. So, and this is the steering arm. That's a 3/4 inch as well. They went to metric when they went to 620s, so. The bolts are the same, so you don't have to worry about the front and rear, anything like that. And then just a little tap to get it out there. So I'll take this stuff and start putting it in baggies and separate it out. I've got it clamped down on the oh, actually I guess I'm on the boss. I just need it to hold. I don't need it to that's the base of the spindle, not the bearing spacer where the seal rides. I thought I was going to clamp down on that, but I didn't. So let's see here. Still hasn't moved. Now, this time I am clamped down on the bearing spacer. Okay, I don't care because this is getting a disc kit, so that bearing spacer's coming off and getting one of the bearing adapters. So. Ow! Mother. Alright, let's get a bigger persuader and see if well, I think I'm going to spray some penetrating oil on there and let it sit for a little bit. Yeah, and I don't know that it'll be salvageable anyway. Oh, no. It already bent off to the side, so yeah, you know, they're a pain in the butt to drill out and stuff like that, but I have more, so the biggest reason you want to try, well, the biggest reason you want to try to save them is because the last time we checked, they were not available through the dealer. Now, now there is a guy on Ransom that had them made, and I think he still has some on hand, or can have more made, or something like that. So, so we'll let that sit. That's Aerocoil. Supposed to be extremely good. You can do some research online. The best penetrating lube out there, or penetrant out there, is a 50% mix of 50% acetone, 50% transmission fluid, automatic transmission fluid. And there's actually some where they took it into the lab and they actually tested it and proved it. So you know, I've never mixed any up. It's just I've had the can of Aerocoil, and since you only use a couple drops in a whack, it's going to last a while. So as long as we're here, let's take the nut off of the other side here, and put a little penetrant on that too. Now, what size is that? 13 is pretty close. So it's ½ inch. So these aren't, I've had a major headache taking these out before, but typically these aren't anywhere near as bad as taking the one off down here. Because a lot of times, you know, they've rebuilt the kingpins on the truck. So a lot of times this one has never come out to replace the bushings or anything like that. Not the bushings, the seals. This one's been out to fix it. Reality is for most of these trucks, they've probably never had any of this maintenance done. So, and basically, put a little in there, and then I think we'll set this one aside and we'll see if we can get that fulcrum pin out of the other one. I can't tell if it's moving in there or if it's just simply slipping in the vise. I know it's slipping in the vise. Oh, it's actually moving. Yay! Okay, so that's still too long out the other side for me to... There we go. Nice. Okay. Now, I'm still holding this. I pulled it out the bottom. I'm still holding it. I want to make sure that I take a Sharpie, at least for now, and there's no sway bar mount on here. So this is the back side, and that's the tension control rod. That goes down that way. So the front of the truck is down. So I'm going to point that at the front. Okay, now later, after I've had a chance to wipe some of the grease off and that stuff, I'll scribe the line into there so I can more easily, so it'll stay when I put it in the parts washer and stuff like that. And I gotta say, I love these new U-line gloves. I just finally put a tear in it. I wore these for several hours the other day. Took them off, left them on the bench, put them back on today, and I've been using them for an hour. And I just finally put a tear in that one. So, alright, control arms off. And actually, I don't even really need to, since I don't care about cleaning this crap up right now, excuse me. Let's see, I'm dealing with the, this is the passenger side. Alright, so it's the passenger side. So I already threw the cups in the bag label passenger side, so I had to figure out which one it was. So I know that in fact I even labeled it on here already, Zert front. So the Zert goes to the front. So there's our sway bar mount, and I know this is a little far off in the distance, but you get the idea. That's the front, so I'm going to put the arrow in there from the front. The Zert is going to be on the front. And I'm just going to put this stuff together enough to keep it all in one place. There, done. I'll try to make a point not to throw them out in the rain. I'll try to keep them from getting wet. I may actually degrease them and sandblast them while I'm at it, but I kind of doubt it. I got other things I'd rather do. Hate cleaning parts. I'll set those off to the side, and if I decide to Z another set of 320 lower control arms, I'll do that. Now this one's already, the cotter bolt is already out for the kingpin too, so that's cool. Now, take a look here. So look at this now once it's off, okay? It's pretty hard to tell what's front and what's back, okay? Okay, so it's once you separate the control arm and you got the steering arm off, it's a little harder to tell which is front or back, okay? it's pretty well straight, okay? And if you take a look here, you'll notice that there's a bit of angle there, okay? With the dog bone basically straight up and down, you can see that that backing plate is leaning over just a little bit. That's because there is a 1.5 degrees of kingpin inclination built in. And so let me come at it from another angle here and see if we can see it even better. Okay, so look at the zert fittings there. See the one down here? That sticks out more than the one up here, okay? And this part of the dog bone's actually thicker than it is up here, okay? So you'd think it'd be the other way around. So there is a inclination in there. Yeah, in fact, it's even pretty obvious from that side there too. You can see the backing plates leaning. So the whole point here is that it does matter which spindle goes back on which side, okay? The angle is built into the dog bone, okay, not in the the spindle itself. Let me turn this around so I can see if I'm even in the, nope. Okay. So the angle is built into the dog bone, okay, and it's a little easier to see when it's apart, but it's not in the spindle, okay. So this spindle piece is the same casting, okay. What they've done is they've just drilled and tapped a hole here, but you can see there's a boss over here for it. Just like there's a bump here on the dog bone, and there's a bump here. That way, right and left. They use the same dog bone. What it is they bore the hole and machine it at a slightly different angle. So we'll take a look at that a little bit later. That's a more pronounced angle than I've seen on some of them. So anyway, it does matter. Okay, so the rest of the point I'm trying to get at here is on the other one over here, there's our stop. No sway bar tab sticking out here. So this is the back, okay? So that bolt goes to the back, and that's what we want to keep track of. And the caster inclination, okay? As you're looking at it, since this leans top to the left, okay, this is the passenger side. You'd never want the caster to lean forward. You always want it to lean backwards. So we can tell that way how it's set up too. And I think that's it for the boring facts for the day for now. I can come up with more in a bit.